Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Main Event, your history of the Champions League. We are midway through season 2005-2006, and this week we're looking at the quarterfinals and the last 16. I'm joined, as always, by my two intrepid explorers through time. David Edgar, how are we doing?
Oh, I wasn't expecting you to come to me first there. Yes, it's great to be back here. We've got some excellent games to look forward to tonight and some excellent teams as well. But yeah, maybe a wee rivalry that I'd forgotten about between Jose and a pre-Pep Barca, because for a couple of seasons this was the hottest ticket in town.
Yeah, spice right from the very outset. I like to spice things up, David. You know that. Adam, how are we doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Looking forward to getting into this. We were just chatting off air. The round of 16 and the quarterfinals are decent. Lots of goals and stuff, but we're definitely starting to see the rise of a bit more defensive football. We touched on it last time, didn't we, with Benitez and Mourinho, and I think we're seeing that coming to the fore a little bit. So there's a nice mix for us to get our teeth into.
Sure, there is. Let's start then, Adam, with where David kind of trailed us. Barcelona Chelsea, another rematch. We've got a fair bit of this actually happening from the last couple of seasons. An incredible last 16 that we discussed in the last season series. Drawn again, first leg at Stamford Bridge this time. Quite tousy. The pitch is not looking brilliant, one has to say. And it lacks a wee bit of the skill and the panache, I thought, from the season before. Not the intensity. It's pretty fairly end to end for a Mourinho game, but again, this is maybe a different stage of Mourinho than we would become accustomed to. Opening goals, Chelsea's opening goal, Barcelona's equaliser. Nonsense goals, really, own goals technically, but Barcelona possibly deservedly taking the winner. Eto'o, who's going to be an absolute thorn in the side of many sides in this run to the final, Adam, and Barcelona have got that 2-1 win with an away goal, all the momentum going into to the Nou Camp. Messi in this game, a very, very, very young Lionel Messi. I remember front cover of 442, or just before the 2006 World Cup, with Ronaldinho and Messi on the front cover, and something along the lines of, Ronaldinho said, "People say I'm the best player in the world. I'm not even the best player at Barcelona," and that's obviously to whom he was referring.
Yeah, and I remember at the time I was thinking, okay, fair enough, it's going to be the next big thing, fresh off the Javier Saviola hype train that never quite materialised. But I think he's obviously played. Was this his breakout season? I think it probably wasn't, to be honest. I think it's probably was in the sense that
in the Champions League,
it was his first. It was his first full season, but I think it's the year after where you're seeing him start to become that kind of, not focal point, but you know what I mean, drifting in off the flank, scoring lots of goals. I don't think he scored too many this year, but looking back at all the reports and things, they're saying Messi's the big difference this year compared to the year before, and I think it definitely plays out in that way. Interesting, you mentioned with the pitch, there was loads of needle between Barcelona players and Mourinho pre-game. They thought that they were deliberately messing up the pitch to be Mourinho, I guess, and make it difficult that Barcelona couldn't play. There's a really good podcast out just now. I know Martyn potentially has been listening to it. It's Simon Cooper, who's done loads of great books and stuff on football. I think he writes for the FT potentially, or he did
Yeah.
do. But he's got a Heroes and Humans podcast, and he's looking at similar themes to some of the stuff that we're doing, I guess, but focused in more on specifics. So there's lots of good stuff about Mourinho and Wenger actually in their archives. It's only been going for I think maybe 6 months or so, but there's lots of interesting chat there. And he goes on about how Mourinho was such a master at manipulation, whether it was the media, the opposition, his own players. He used to bombard players with texts about how great they were and how special they were. And eventually they realised that he's doing it to everyone in the team, basically, or at least his favourite 10 to 15. And it gets to a point, as we know with Mourinho, 2-3 years in, people start to sort of not see through it, but
he probably didn't do it for Luke Shaw.
No, not see through it, but you know what I mean. Get sick of it. That message.
It's too intense, isn't it?
It's
After
way too
a while,
intense.
yeah. That's Pep's. Just in a modern sense, that's probably Pep's greatest achievement, and Klopp as well to a degree, to keep that level of intensity going up. But yeah, with Mourinho, it does seem to be 3 years, and he's like a very exciting boyfriend or girlfriend, isn't he? That it's amazing, but then the highs are high and the lows are low.
I think, like, see the Barcelona part, Martyn. Obviously, you're aware of it as a nice little backstory, but I feel like these games, the season before and this season, obviously, is sort of where it sort of crystallizes for me when you hear him talking about Barcelona, and the hatred that exists between them. I think the Barcelona fans and the Nou Camp are bombarding the bus, shouting "translator" at him on the bus, so they obviously feel quite similar because of his crusade against them. He thinks he should have been the Barcelona coach back in the 90s. He said that openly quite a few times. You would hope it was post Robson and not during
his time. Yeah.
But I remember thinking at the time that was wild, and it's my own naivety or whatever back then, that he's barely had a playing career, and how would he be the Barcelona coach? But looking at what we know now in his career, I think it's probably naive, I think, to think that he was just a translator for Robson. There's definitely offering his opinions, doing some work behind the scenes, even at those sort of mid-90s stages with.
I think so. I think he was, a lot more than that. But there is a really interesting, I think, psychodrama plays out between Jose Mourinho, and it will go on for years. But Adam's right. This is where it really, I wouldn't say starts. I think crystallizes is correct. Mourinho at this point is the best manager in the world. He's beloved. There's one place where he doesn't get respect, not even hatred. That's the thing, right? If you're in England, just that sort of bit patronising almost, isn't it? That wee head pat. Oh, you're doing well for yourself, little translator, and it really gets to him. And because of that, Martyn alluded to this last week, and we'll talk about it in future shows. He then completely sets himself up as the antichrist of everything that Barca become in the latter half of this decade. He is obsessed with Barcelona, and I think the thing that annoys him is that they are not obsessed with him. They don't see him as the one who got away. They don't even hate him, which I think he would have been far easier with. It is the fact that he is considered, if you like, oh, there's a nice wee lad that translated for, and it gets to him. And I do wonder if sometimes he can't see the wood for the trees here.
I think that it's, on his side, this will definitely develop into a career block and something that does ruin his career, I think, because he is so set against what would become the prevailing style and philosophy in football, that he's very much on the outside looking in relatively quickly. I don't quite accept the indifference argument. You don't get thousands of people shouting anything at a team bus if they don't care.
I wouldn't say indifference. I would say it's patronising. They've got one up on him, and he's not used to that. I think he can deal with naked hatred quite easily because he knows why they hate him. I think with the Barcelona, you know what it's like. It's always it's like when you bump into your first your first girlfriend. You want to impress. That's kind of what it's like. He's going back to an ex and he wants to impress,
I
and it
think
doesn't quite
both are
happen.
protesting a bit too much. I think
A bit
on
too
that side.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
They should just get a hotel room together. Let's face it, and go away. But the thing about this game is Chelsea do deserve a bit of praise because Asier Del Horno, and that's one of those names I'll admit to having forgotten about.
Totally forgotten. Came in this season.
Totally forgot Asier Del Horno. He gets sent off in the first half, and
Nonsense.
Stamford Bridge goes, yeah, absolute nonsense. And Stamford Bridge goes feral. But this Chelsea side were capable of raising their game, and actually, take the lead in this match. But Barca are already displaying something that would become their trademark the next few years, which is calmness. They don't get caught up in it.
Yeah.
They keep playing their game. They keep doing exactly what they came to do. And now we're so used to that. Man City never change what they're doing. Teams don't. They all believe in their system and they keep, even in the last few minutes, you very rarely these days, see a manager saying, right, big centre half up front and we'll go long. And it's generally an admission of, right, we've nothing else. These days, teams will keep doing, working the ball. This was new, or certainly it seemed that way to me. I mean, I don't know what you boys think, but at the time, this was, why aren't they, they don't look panicked. They're a goal down to 10 men and they're not panicked, but they weren't panicked and they knew they believed in themselves enough that they would get there.
But I think last year they were shaken. I think Rijkaard did get drawn into the nonsense. I thought that first half at Stamford Bridge, they were just blown away. They lost all sorts of sense of shape, and stuff on the touchline and all that. So it's almost as if, and fair's fair, they have learnt that lesson, and it's kind of drilled in. You don't respond. You don't react. There will be a circus. There'll be a cavalcade of carry on going on in this stadium tonight, on the pitch, on the sidelines. You do not respond. You play your own game. And there's probably just a lot more belief, Adam, in that team. Another year down the line, Samuel Eto'o seems to be a kind of focal point that really coming into himself there, and you've got players like Ronaldinho, a very young Messi, Julie, Larson later on, who can play off that, and they just get more confidence that if they do their thing and continue to do their thing, they'll be all right. And they did in the return leg. That sending off, I think, is a nonsense. But Barcelona possibly decent couple of penalty shouts in that Stamford Bridge leg, but it's Ronaldinho's goal in Barcelona late on that kind of kills the tie. Lampard scores a penalty, but yeah, too late to kind of force extra time, as it were. And that flatness a wee bit in that Chelsea season, because that's February, March time, and it's just the league, and we say just is still very comfortable, but yeah. It's kind of, that's it.
Yes.
Because it was kind of expected. Chelsea were, in inverted commas, robbed of that final ghost goal and all that kind of carry on. They're knocking at the door, right? That door's ajar. It's only a matter of time, and but that just again shows you these some of these last 16 games are just genuinely brilliant teams.
Yeah, there are some great battles in these ones. I think the whole getting caught up in it, I think pre-game Barcelona certainly did. The media's like there, it'll whip it up into a frenzy. There's chat about revenge and all that sort of stuff. Mourinho's program notes, actually, he put in them the word revenge shouldn't be a word in football. If the word exists, it's only for losers, which is very on the nose as usual. What I found particularly funny about this is that he made no bones about the fact he was going to target Van Bronckhorst because he couldn't tackle, or he said he couldn't tackle. He's obviously playing left back at this point, and the irony is Mourinho's left back gets sent off for issues as well. So it's just one of those little quirks. But yeah, I think you're right. Ronaldinho fantastic at this point. The balance,
Wonderful.
yeah, I was going to say there, the balance here is really, really interesting. And once we dig into these after the next couple of seasons when Guardiola comes in, because Ronaldinho Deco, A2, Messi. Just looks frightening, and Guardiola gets rid of three of them and gives Messi the starring role, which he probably deserves, but it's one of those bad influence type things that he says, like they're A2 and Ronaldinho in particular's off field lifestyle is not what he wanted Messi getting involved in. So it's a really interesting thing. I don't remember too much of that examples of that where they're protecting a young player in that way. I'm sure there's other aspects to it as well, such as the personality of those players and clashing with Guardiola and all that sort of stuff, which we'll come on to. But at this point, this is a really, really fun Barcelona team. And they've got that bit of arrogance back that we don't like you if you don't play football in the way that we play, or we don't like you if you don't let us beat you type thing, which I think all good Barcelona teams probably have, for better or worse.
Yeah, and they've not really been that much on it, Adam. They've not been that assured since the Dream Team, really. I mean, they've probed, they've got to semi-finals, they've obviously been, they're a huge club, they've got obviously great players, they'll always kind of trouble the Champions League, but not quite with this level of assurance. Is obviously going to take them all the way to the very end. But picking that up further down the line, let's stay with England and Spain then. Davey, Real Madrid versus Arsenal. Peter Drury, as the teams come out, said, the European royalty. One
of them.
Quite for Arsenal, as we've talked about. Did mention that not an English team has never won in the Bernabeu, and to be honest, although the goal took a while in coming from Henry, Arsenal were very, very good value for it. They were all over them pretty much from the start.
Yeah, we're entering the dark spell for Real Madrid, and if you are a Madridista listening to this, it gets worse over the next few seasons. There's a Nadir at Anfield coming, but this Arsenal team are approaching this competition with a maturity, or maybe that's the wrong word, Martyn. Maybe it's concentration, because we've mentioned so often on the show over the last few, a stupid defeat here or dropped points there that were costing them in previous rounds, and it was maybe a lack of focus. They look laser focused here. They're also very good, and that helps. But this is an almost complete performance from Arsenal here. As you mentioned, the only thing I think you could be concerned about if you were Arsenal is the fact that they didn't score more. They had the opportunities to put this tie to bed in the first leg, but they keep at it and they get a very well deserved goal. And as we sort of touched upon, and we'll mention it more next week, this Arsenal team is not conceding goals in Europe this season. They are incredibly difficult to score against. So that brings a level of confidence, that security that they have within themselves. But this is a Real Madrid team that I'm very interested in hearing Adam's take on it, because to me it looks assorted, it looks jumbled, it looks random. There doesn't seem to be any cohesion to it. And he just mentioned there the Barcelona team's balance, and Chelsea too. You look at that Chelsea team and that Chelsea squad, and it's all, they're really set here, and they can add him in there, and everything just seems almost metronomically done. Whereas this Madrid team is like walking into the kind of final stages of a Black Friday sale at a supermarket, and just seeing, the debris. There's still some high-priced items, but it's all mixed and jumbled. And this is how I feel about them. They don't give any sense of a stable system or setup.
The chicken's coming home to roost, Adam, though.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah, definitely. And you only need to see the year before. I think David's spot on, but the year before is when they go on their, the two seasons before is when they go on their English expedition, and they bring in Beckham, fair enough, but then Michael Owen and Jonathan Woodgate.
Woodgate was bizarre. Woodgate was absolutely. But remember his debut?
A really strange one, yeah.
For Real, yeah, he completed the perfect hat trick for a defender, which is penalty, own goal, red card.
Yeah, And they also bring in that year Thomas Gravesen comes in, that
Jesus.
2006 January
From
window.
Everton.
I had
Insane.
completely forgotten about Walter Samuel going there for a year. Post Roma, pre-Inter. It does feel like a bit of a Real Madrid type signing that would probably do quite well, but he didn't. So yeah, I agree with David. The year after, you got Robinho coming in, which now feels like a really good Real Madrid type signing, but coming into that type of team there, I mean, he did good to okay for Real Madrid, but Baptista coming in again, a player that I quite liked, but maybe more at Sevilla than at Real Madrid. It felt like a bit of an odd one, certainly for the money. So yeah, I think it is the end of the Galactico era, and they're just sort of caught a little bit between the two ideals. And to be honest, it doesn't really change. After that, they just keep trying to almost reenact. Is that the right word? The Galactico
Yeah.
piece.
If we
Yeah.
pick up enough good players, then to me it actually has echoes of Manchester United post Ferguson.
Yeah.
Which is if we just keep picking up good players, some of them absolute superstars and legends, then surely eventually we'll stumble onto the right manager with the right squad. And instead, each iteration of it gets weirder and weirder and further away from actually anything that
Yeah.
resembles a side. And I think that especially when you look at this Arsenal team, when you look at this Chelsea side, when you look at this Barca side, all of those squads of players who are bought to play with each other specifically, to play in a certain system specifically. And Real Madrid are just because there is no world in which, as you say, you sign Thomas Gravesen because he done well at Everton. That just doesn't happen. If you're going to be signing, players of that ilk to go in, it's just mad. And Adam's right. It's almost like the Galactico thing stopped. What will we do now? We need to do something. This is something, therefore we'll do this. And they're just searching for identity. And I suppose with that in mind, then it's no surprise that the team displays no identity.
Back to
Yeah, it's funny
Arsenal.
they've
I
got.
don't. So, but back to
Yeah,
Arsenal.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
It's a more tense evening at Highbury. I think it's fair to say Real absolutely have their moments. It's a proper second leg of the Champions League knockout. 0-0 on the night. Arsenal get the job done. But again, maybe a sign of maturity, sign of concentration, as David said. But they look far more fluid, I think, in Madrid than they maybe did at home.
Yeah, 100%. I thought the game in Madrid was great. Henry was terrific. I think over both legs. To be honest, I think Henry could have had 3 or 4 goals combined. Ronaldo's still kicking about for Madrid as well. Not even 30 yet, but he looks very
Oh my
much
word!
like the
Henry
physique
gets away
of
from him.
Ronaldo now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Henry gets away from him for the goal, and he gets away from a few players, it must be said. That Henry goal is, I was going to say, phenomenal.
Sensational.
We've seen it so often. It's just an Henry goal around that time. He was just doing it so often. But Ronaldo can't cope with him. He can't. He does look big, even when the teams are lining up and Arsenal are walking past Madrid. I think that's the way they did it, and Ronaldo's at the back, and it had the hint of a Legends.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I think for Arsenal, this is like they've got lots. They are not doing very well in England as well. Really, really poor this season. Loads and loads of injuries, but I think you're kind of starting to see there's a nice balance in terms of experience. Like they have the big players, the big experienced players like Henry, Ljungberg, Roberto Silva, Kolo Toure, and they play really, really well. Here they've got this nice mix of young players coming through: Reyes, Fabregas, Flamini, Eboué, even Senderos, who are all 21, 22. And it is sort of starting to look like, okay, that's a decent balance. You've got the senior pros who are great, best in the league in their positions, and then you've got all these young guys coming through. Wenger's got this magic touch that what a solid base he's got, and he's able to add all these players to it. And I think the collapse, if you will, or the downturn that we'll come on to makes that all the more interesting. But yeah, I thought Arsenal really nice balance. This is Wenger compared to the Invincibles. This has moving with the times a little bit. So he's moved, particularly in Europe, to the kind of 4-5-1 with Henry as the main striker rather than Bergkamp and Henry that we've seen a couple of years before. I think we said last week Vieira leaving does go on to leave a gap, but when you're replacing them with Fabregas and you've still got Gilberto Silva in there as well, it's still got quite a nice balance. So I think he's adapted to how football was at this time. He's packing the middle as he would go on to do for the rest of his career, and he's not got the two strikers. But yeah, I would say the Vieira to Fabregas change sort of sums up the style there. It's less box to box, physical, and more about the sort of ball players in midfield. But yeah, over the two legs, I think they absolutely deserved it, and it really should have been more for me.
Okay, we'll stick with English contingent then. Liverpool lost in Portugal to Benfica 1-0. Yeah, not the best result, of course, but still probably expected to do the biz at Anfield, David, but they didn't. And Benfica won 2-0, the holders out, and they looked every bit that side that Adam just didn't really ever love, just kind of scrambled together.
Yes.
You know, Fowler and Morientes and Crouch and Luis Garcia and Sissoko, and just not European champions for another time, for sure.
No, they kind of looked like what they were, really, which was a transitional side under a manager who had massively overachieved the previous season. I think if I asked you to watch these group games back, or blind rather, and you said pick out who the reigning champions are, it would have been very difficult to pick this Liverpool side out. There was the expectation. I mean, it was a bit of a surprise they lost over in Portugal, right? But there was this expectation, huge name though their opponents are historically, that they would just roll them over. Anfield and all that. Anfield's not what it can be on European nights on this occasion, and I wonder if the fans thought that as well. And that does happen occasionally. I saw them get tonked last season by Atalanta, and it was the same thing where the crowd are, it's only this team, we will beat them, and you don't get that the way that the madness that engulfs the place when it's Barcelona or whoever, Real Madrid the following year. But in terms of the performance this night, it's anemic. It's has very little. They are schooled, I suppose, is what I'm looking for, by a side who are much tidier in possession, who move the ball really quickly, who are their technical level, and you can't say this, I think, in the modern era about English clubs, but the technical level is higher than it is with the Liverpool side. There's still in this Liverpool team, Martyn, I think, an almost throwback up and under element to it. And as fans of many a British club know, that is great in your own domestic league, but sometimes you get into Europe and they've got 11 players, including the keeper, who are all very comfortable, very happy with the ball. Of course, now, the style of football has evolved, that teams at all levels are looking to do this, but when you would see it so starkly back in this era with a British team up against a European side, it was really jarring. And as I say, this Liverpool side it's uninspiring, isn't it? The names, the way it's set up, the way it played, it's sort of like it's kind of very stodgy, lit up by moments, hopefully by moments of genius from some of the players that you named there, Gerrard, Luis Garcia. Fowler coming back was obviously an emotional thing, and it meant a lot to the Liverpool supporters, but clearly his days of being able to dominate at a level like this are gone. And they're never in contention across the 3 hours of these ties. At no point do you think Liverpool are going through. They really go out meekly.
And Benfica managed by a future Everton manager, Adam. 2 future Everton managers managing in this round of the Champions League. 1 future Everton manager scoring in this round of the Champions League. Funny old world. I'd totally forgotten that Ronald Koeman was in Portugal around this time.
Yeah, for someone who was such a great player who I loved to watch, I could quite happily never watch another Ronald Koeman managed team. They were just not for me. It's funny how players play and then their teams are just nowhere near the image of themselves. But yeah, this is peak Nuno Gomes time, isn't it? And Simao,
Yeah.
Luizao, all those guys. So maybe the first wave of Benfica that we see now in terms of bringing in the sort of less fancied or under the radar South Americans, making advantage of those connections that they've got there and turning them into what they are now, which is one of the best talent factories in Europe. So yeah, Trapattoni was there the year before, pretty decent success, and then Koeman came in. He does okay here. I don't think they have a very good season this year. I'm pretty sure they finished third, which in Portugal
domestically,
is
it's death.
not great, but gets to
I mean,
quarterfinals.
Koeman's an odd manager, isn't he? Because he seems to either do really well in a job or really terribly with no in between. He never seems to just do okay. It seems to be great or sacked. And he's in this weird cycle of being headhunted from a club because he's doing well, Everton to Southampton, and then binned, Everton. And I would struggle, and I've watched a lot of Everton when he was there. Obviously, seen a fair bit of his Southampton side as well. Seen a fair bit of his national team, and we've seen throughout this his teams in European competition. I would struggle to tell you what his football principles are. There's pragmatism, and then there's, well, do you stand for anything? And it's so odd for a guy who played where he played and with the players that he played with to play that way.
But we're talking about over the last couple of seasons, last few episodes, about prevailing dogma being challenged by the absolute opposite of that, and that's going to maybe actually tell the story of European football over the next kind of 20 years. I don't know if that's too simplistic, Adam, but that's Dutch football seemingly in a nutshell from the 70s, 80s onwards, really. A lot of pragmatists railing against, I guess, the ego of Cruyff and Michels and whatever, wanting to do it in a kind of different way. And Holland, not allowed to say that anymore, Netherlands are quite often like that at tournaments as well. They can either be absolutely open and free-flowing, or they can be like 2010 and just absolutely 1-0 their way to the final, and or be at least be very physical, very, very pragmatic. And the personalities, they're not shy, and it seems to be kind of dominated by that. Conscious of time, a couple other bits and pieces, obviously, from this round of 16. Ajax looked to be, speaking of the Dutch, in great place. Klaas-Jans Huntelaar putting them ahead against Inter. They were 2-0 up after 20 minutes, but they were pegged back over the night 2-2. And Stankovic, he got them back into the game in Amsterdam, Dejan Stankovic, and got the only goal back at the San Siro. Leon, Adam, we gave him quite a lot of props last week. Meeting PSV again. They were obviously involved the quarter-final stage last season, went to penalty kicks. Zero need for penalty kicks here. An absolute thumping over 2 legs, 5-0. And Werder Bremen and Juve. This looks like a really fun last 16 match, I guess. Great match in Germany. Looks like Juve have come back and come from 1 back to 2-1 very late on in the game. A Trezeguet header was just an odd looping goal, to be honest. But Bremen get a goal back, and then Miku gets a winner. In Turin, they're in the driving seat. They go ahead, but again, Juve come back, as you would expect Juve to do. And only a couple of minutes to go, 1-1 on the night, 4-3 on aggregate. Cross comes in, Tim Visa collects, he's got it under control. No, he hasn't, he's spilled it, and Emerson is first to react to kind of roll the ball in. Not the last howler that Tim Visa, thankfully, will have in European knockout competition. But so close for Bremen. We gave them a bit of love last week, but loads of goals in those games.
Yeah, I think if looking at the knockout stages, other than Rangers Villarreal, which gets a fair amount of goals, I think this is one that I would have been very surprised if someone said it's going to finish 4 each over the knockouts, because it's two teams you don't associate with that really. Bremen, we mentioned last week, functional, maybe quite similar to Villarreal, albeit on a lower level. But yeah. These late goals in here, Trezeguet again. It feels like we probably haven't given him enough love
I was
throughout
going to
this.
say that, yeah.
But he still just keeps going. Obviously, we've got Calciopoli coming shortly, and he drops down and he comes back up and has a decent return season. And when he's back up, but this is him. I think this is probably his best season for Juventus. It must be one of his best goal scoring seasons. But it just feels like this Juventus period here feels like not very much happens, and I know they're winning things and they're getting to latter stages. They got to the final, but I don't know. It feels like they're definitely underperforming. I think that sort of glosses over everything. It feels like the 90s when they got to the 3 finals. There, you're thinking, right, okay, fair enough. You've got Zidane as well coming in, and great players at this point, but maybe just not quite going that extra mile that you want them to be in these games. Nedved still kicking about as well. Yeah, I feel like they're similar to Madrid in that sense, where you've got lots of good players there, but they're just missing that something, that identity. I guess these clubs don't really have identity. They either win or they don't win, and when they don't win, they look a shapeless mess, and when they do win, nobody really cares about how they look. So it's just one of those things with these clubs. But yeah, Trezeguet definitely for me, the amount of goals he pops up with here is remarkable. I think Inzaghi seems to get a lot more love around about this point, but I think it's only fair that he gets highlighted because he is a huge part of Juventus at this point.
David, let's talk about Rangers then. The easiest on paper last 16 tie I think Rangers could have got. I think that's controversial. 2-2 at Ibrox, always fighting to stay in the game. I think it's probably fair to say. The second Villarreal goal that night, I think I've seen Rangers concede that goal at least once every European season. Just an utter shambles. No one really knowing where to go, and someone accepting the gift very gratefully. But Rangers are ahead in Spain with that Lovenkrands goal. There, of course, is the miss, Chris Boyd's miss, and all of that. Doesn't work out, obviously, 1-1 and away goals. Riquelme comes out of this tie probably better than anyone else, and high on a lot of Rangers fans' lists as probably the best player they've seen at Ibrox in an opposition shirt. There is a kind of cult status around him, I think. I'm maybe not absolutely in that club. I think Mendieta's performance, for example, is on a different planet. This is a dreadful Rangers team. I think I'm quicker than him. But the plaudits go where the plaudits went, and it became a bit of a famous night in many ways.
Yeah, it did. His performance the first leg was excellent. Should be slightly tempered, as you mentioned, if you're going to do the best players. For me, the best players I've witnessed playing against us at Ibrox were Mendieta and Robert Rosnecki for Red Star Belgrade in 1990. But they were up against far superior Rangers teams, and that's not being disrespectful to them. You can only play what's you're up against. But in particular, that Rangers team in 1999 was far, far better than this one. I mean, off the scale in terms of the talent that's there. But Rangers fight back in the first leg. Seemed a wee bit too little too late. That's the first time I've ever seen a manager being forced to make a substitution by the crowd that night. The crowd were roaring at McLeish to bring on Thomas Buffel, who's involved in the equaliser. But 2 away goals going to Spain, where Rangers' record then and up until recent years has been spectacularly poor. Villarreal were a good side. No expectation, which sometimes helps. Adam's right there when he mentions the super clubs. They seem to either win stuff or be in disarray, because if not winning is disarray. Whereas you're not going to get that at a club like at Villarreal. But the atmosphere is strange, because there are far more Rangers supporters in the ground than there are Villarreal fans. I'd say 3-1. And Rangers play really, really well. Lovenkrands, who was absolutely on fire in Europe this season, couldn't find his arse with both hands domestically, right enough, but he wasn't the only one. He gets the goal, and then you're absolutely right, that chance for Boyd towards the end, which normally he would put away in his sleep. So I think Rangers come out of this with credit, for certainly not being disgraced at this level. And again, it's so odd when you think of some of the far better Rangers teams who have been disgraced in Europe. But Villarreal were a team with a lot to like about them in terms of the way that they were structured, the way that they were set up. But they maybe just I don't know, maybe if they took Rangers a wee bit for granted. Because the first hour at Ibrox, they were well within their rights to take Rangers as a fairly easy tie, because they are so much better than Rangers, as you say, fighting to stay in it. Second leg, though, Rangers approach it in a way that us as supporters probably weren't expecting either. I was expecting them to go out and try and hope, hang on in the game, and they didn't. They went for it, almost the whole nothing to lose, this is a bonus for us thing, playing with that freedom. And Villarreal tense up a little bit, but they've got the away goals, and it just about sees them through. But they couldn't have had any complaints by the end of the tie. An hour in, it looked as though it was going to finish 4 or 5-0 over the 2 legs. But by the end of the tie, I think they were doing pretty relieved to be in the last 8.
We'll come back to Villarreal near the end of this show, Adam. Last 16 game, I want to look at again. Clash of the Titans, if you like. Bayern Munich 1, Milan 1 in Munich. Ballack and Shevchenko score, tit for tat. Star player for star player. Back to the San Siro, and Milan are brilliant. Inzaghi, people Inzaghi over the course of these knockout games scores so many people Inzaghi goals. It's untrue.
Yeah.
The glancing headers, being a yard out from the line to smash one home. He puts Milan ahead. They have a penalty. Shevchenko drags it wide. Oliver Kahn is Martyn Keown-esque in his face, at the side of his face, giving it the big and, well, you know what's coming. Ball. A brilliant cross by Jaap Stam, who saw that sentence flying into this conversation. A great header by Shevchenko. Probably should have done better though. And they're off and running. Milan end up winning 4-1 on the night, Adam. They go through very, very convincingly. They take on Lyon, who we've talked about. Have been impressive. 0-0 in France, and then 3-1 at home. Now, more in the balance. Inzaghi again put them ahead. Diarra scrambling home, I think, for Lyon, and then it's 2 very late goals from people in Shevchenko, 180th minute, one in injury time, to send Milan through to the semi-finals. I'll get your thoughts on those games if you have any, but what I want to ask really is about this Milan side. Winners in 03, quarterfinals in 04, because of a nonsense really against Depor. Istanbul, they'll get to the semi-final here. They're going to get their next win in the following season. One first half in Depor, one second half in Istanbul. Away from a lot more love, surely, for this final Milan side, because we've not had a great Milan side since then, really, have we? because they have been the consistent team in Europe over 3, 4, 5 seasons here. And does that just become tarnished from those collapses, the collapse in Spain and the collapse in the second half against Liverpool, for that reputation? Because this is one of the most balanced, silky, tough, whatever you want, you can find it, teams in Europe. And I don't think it gets anywhere near the level of love. Maybe because you've got this Barcelona team coming through and England's going to take over pretty quickly. But I think it goes under the radar quite a lot, actually. And I wonder if it is just because of those collapses.
Yeah, I think if this was to happen now, because without saying, they'd probably get more stick for it. But I think it goes under the radar both ways, if you like. It's how good that team was. Definitely goes under the radar. What Ancelotti did, how he's adapting, how he's evolving. We've spoken about that. We'll see 2007 as the high point of that, which we'll come on to next time out, or next 2 weeks' time. But I think because they win 2, I think that helps. But you're right, there's an outside chance there that they can be the first one to retain it, and arguably 3, maybe even 4 in a row at this point. But I think because they win the 2, 2003 and 2007, if they hadn't and they'd got to the final again in 2007, then absolutely it's very Juventus-y in the mid-90s. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things. It's also that point of Italian football as well, where 2006, this summer coming up, okay, 2007 for Milan, but this summer coming up is a kind of watershed, isn't it, or a bookending of Serie A. Italy go and win the World Cup as well, which is a nice bookend, and then you've got all the Calciopoli stuff coming. So, yeah, maybe it's just one of those things that because it gets worse quickly for all of Serie A, it's maybe one of those things that it almost just gets forgotten about, that they could have had definitely a bit more success here. But yeah, take nothing away from them. They were great. Inzaghi, you're spot on, those deflected headers from a yard out, and the ball just kicking off his shins and going over the line by any means necessary. Really good Mikael Ballack goal in the first game. He hits that very well. Yeah, I think it sort of showcases what Milan are all about at this point. They've got lots and lots of goals, as we said. You've got Kaká, who's fantastic at this point. He just hit the ground running, didn't he?
He did.
The year before just comes in, like you said, just one of those things that a player comes in, they've got a coach who can get the best out of them. They've got a system. He comes in as the crown jewel, if you like, on top to replace aging Rui Costa. So yeah, just a nice balance there with them. Obviously not to be this year, but no, I definitely take the point that they probably could have won at least, or definitely won one more, given how
even without winning them though. Yeah, even without winning them, I just what they did, I just don't think gets the love, and I think it's just maybe it's scarred because of those 2 ridiculous halves of football against Depor and Liverpool. I just think they're brilliant. Kaká's goal against Bayern, absolutely kind of establishing. And maybe there's, we'll get into him, an argument that he maybe didn't kick on and do what he possibly could do. But, team sport and all of that, and things are going to change quite a lot for Milan and Italian football as we know it. Some of the other quarters in, Benfica drew Barcelona 0-0 in Spain, and I just seemed like the most predictable result back in Barcelona. 2-0, very well worked, very simple goals for Ronaldinho and Eto'o. Arsenal versus Juve then, a very intriguing quarter-final tie. Narrative klaxons, David, all over the place. Patrick Vieira returns. You've got Henry, of course, with, would you say, a grudge? He never overly enjoyed his time in Juventus. You have this young, 10-year-old, whatever Fabregas was when he's playing here, taking that Vieira role. And the first Arsenal goal on the night, scored by Fabregas, a crunching Robert Pires tackle on Patrick Vieira. Beautiful work, the movement. You just forget how well that Arsenal side moved, actually. And Fabregas kind of sweeps it away. And then Henry does well, actually, to control. It looks like an easy goal. I don't think it is. I think he does really, really well to just keep that under control and really send Arsenal into, well, effectively in the end, into the semi-finals, but certainly into prime position. And David, again with the narrative stuff, everything now, Arsenal underachieving, always bottle it against big sides, screw up against teams they shouldn't, all the hits. They've knocked out Real Madrid, they've knocked out Juventus, the finals in Paris, Thierry Henry's having the season of his dreams, Wenger's going home, it's the final year at Highbury, everything is just geared towards, finally, Arsenal doing something outside of England.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely felt that it would be the final, that it was. I didn't know who would win. So I never felt this year their names on the trophy. I thought it would be Arsenal and Barca in the final. But that in itself, when we've waxed lyrical about how good this Barcelona side were, tells you how good this Arsenal side were. This is, in a way, the one that got away from Arsenal, and obviously next week we'll discuss why. But the team that loses their discipline here, Martyn, are Juventus, who have basically chucked it 2 red cards in injury time. And you get players, by the way, that you just dislike and you don't really know what they've done to do it. Mauro Camoranesi. And I can absolutely bet, even without talking to him, that he's really not Adam's type of player as well. A defensive winger. I hate guys like that.
Adam has these players every single season we do that he just hates for no reason at all.
Irrationally,
Adam Camoranesi?
Nope, no thank you.
Yep,
defensive winger. He's like Zambrotta, although I did appreciate Zambrotta right back, but not when he moved further forward. Who else? Quadrado. No thank you.
That's a good shout. Yeah, he was just a wee torn-faced dick. And I'm basing this entirely on what I've seen from him on a football field. For all I know, he funds orphanages and builds schools and depressed areas.
Man.
But a wonderful fella, and he's wondering why this stranger's being nasty to him. But they lose the discipline because 2-0, you would think, right, okay, you're still in. It's very difficult because Arsenal can score over there. But 2 suspensions are going to kill you. And in that second leg, Arsenal just solid. That's this newfound, and if we're being honest, brief solidity.
Yeah, it's not lasting.
This does not go on for a number of seasons, but they've got it in this season, and they are playing like a team who believe their names on it. And on the right side of that, where it's not contempt, but just this, you mentioned it there, Martyn, all the factors. If you're looking for omens in football, you can usually find some, and there were plenty. But any team who has marched through the semi-finals and has knocked out Real Madrid and Juventus to get there can feel that they're very much in the conversation to win it. And they weren't a side that relied on the home crowd, or like they had to take a team back. You felt in a final that they would be absolutely fine. But yeah, especially when you saw the draw for the semi-finals, I think everybody thought this is Arsenal, Barca and Paris. Arsenal make heavy weather of it after I lavish all this praise on them. But they had found an absolutely perfect way to play in Europe. But as we discussed last week, it was almost like Wenger, after 8 years, he's been looking for this. He finds it and then he abandons it almost immediately, which I think will always go down as a very strange decision.
And the final quarterfinal then, Adam, Inter versus Villarreal. Diego Forlan provides the dream start for Villarreal in the first minute. You're talking about big Brazilian strikers earlier. Adriano cutting quite the figure, leading that Inter line, gets the equaliser, and Obafemi Martins with a winner. I wouldn't mind a wee VAR check on that one, I'll be honest. And I don't think Manuel Pellegrini would have minded that either. So 2-1, and again, this second leg is just how European second legs should be: tight, intense as all hell. Wee bit of afters on the side as well, I think. But Villarreal get it done, and this surprise package thing just keeps on moving. How have they done it, Adam? How are they set up?
Yeah, so they kind of similar theme to a couple of other teams we've spoken about. Valencia under Cooper probably is an example, and maybe not as glamorous. Could you call them as glamorous? Maybe not. But
No,
yeah, I think they're
not as glamorous.
no, they're very workmanlike. I think, and I think that probably comes from where they are geographically. Fernando Roig, who is still the owner, president, billionaire now, bought them in 1997, where they were absolutely nowhere. They were at the bottom of the Segunda. Stadium held 3,500, zero history, hadn't done anything at all. There was at the point 47,000 people living in the town, so very, very small. Apparently in 2006 there was only one hotel there as well. So it was the second smallest town to ever have a side in the semi-finals. The smallest is Monte Carlo, which we know is a bit of a doesn't really count, does it? Given that's what they're aiming for. But yeah, very much rags to riches. He's built it all. He did it in a good way. He didn't just throw cash at the first team. He converted an old orchard, I think it was, into the academy for young players and had them staying there in a way that La Masia and Real Madrid obviously do. Manuel Pellegrini, as you mentioned there, is the coach at this point. This is his first job in Europe. He'd obviously been Chile and River Plate just before this. He is very pragmatic, I think, without being a defensive kind of coach, but he wanted to come in here and get the best out of Riquelme. We've spoken about him before. His Barcelona spell doesn't really quite fit there. This does feel like a team for a maverick player at this stage. You're not getting away with it at the bigger clubs now, carrying these luxury players. You need to be having them at this sort of second tier, if you like. If you don't have the physicality and the application and the attitude and all that sort of stuff, then these are where these players are kind of ending up at this point. It suits him perfectly. Play a 4-3-1-2 here. He's the number 10, and he's got lots of legs and lots of speed round about him. Marcus Senna, who was a terrific player, Takenardi, is here having a bit of an Indian summer.
Yeah, see,
Juan
Adam,
Pablo Soria.
see, funnily enough, when you mentioned that, I was going to say that for me, you get players who are symbolic of a side. And for this Villarreal team, you would think it could be Forlan, who I think was underrated in his time at United, just happened to be there in a kind of poor period for him, but he was a good player. Riquelme, wonderful player. But for me, it's Marco Senna. He's, to me, the player I identify with this side. And he was a bit of a sort of considered a fairly workmanlike midfielder when he arrives. He's there for over 10 years. You know, he's not a one club man, but he's a major European. He's a one club man. But he was at the heart of pretty much everything they did. He was the organiser. He was very good. He, of course, goes into the national team of Spain because he's naturalised, having been there for so long. But it's strange in a side that does contain flair players that's the guy that I associate with the side. And I think that is a testament to exactly what Manuel Pellegrini built. He built a machine to get the best out of his attacking players, but that meant there were plenty of workhorses in this side. And that's the kind of side that bigger teams, it's maybe no coincidence that their match against Rangers is their toughest, because these are the type of sides, there's no pressure on them, there's no huge expectations from the supporters. They're very confident in each other. They're a side who work hard, they're drilled, they'll do the drilling that
Yeah, I think that's fair, Davey. Look, Adam has explained beautifully just how this Villarreal team was put together. He does this every week, and we go into so much detail on some of football's finer points. But let's get to the real quiz here. Can anybody tell me why, between the 2002 World Cup and the 2006 World Cup, so many players look like they're in Iron Maiden?
Well, the Maiden never really.
The hair, the bands are a nonsense. It's just everything is the fabric. It's still too baggy. We're still not quite out of the 1990s yet for me.
Yeah, the Maiden never really go away, do they? They're sort of, they're out there on their own as a fashion icon. They're never in fashion, so they're never out of it. But I think there's a large influx of South American players, and a lot of them go to Germany first. So think about that. You've got your long hair, and sweatbands and stuff. You then go to Germany, where it's heavy metal, it's denim, it's those jackets, with loads of little pin badges on them. And then they take this style out around Europe, and Iron Maiden. You're absolutely right, mate. I've actually been to an Iron Maiden concert once and didn't look at the band. Just looked at the audience. It was spectacular. You have never seen so many people wearing Lynx Africa in your life. But yeah, it was. I mean, it's an interesting look. I must admit, I am fairly. I'm a bit of a kit collector, as you guys know. And this is a lost era. 2000s, mid 2000s is a piss poor era. Some of the designs are absolutely horrendous, and you're right. And then we go within the next couple of years. And I want you, Martyn, I'm charging you with this responsibility. This is your job as host to pick up on, because we don't see a gradual dropping of the shirts. It's almost like one night there was a massive material shortage, and then suddenly they all come out looking like it's 1984 again.
Yeah, I'll be interested, because Roma tried, bless them, and Italy tried at the start of the Euro 2000 with the Kappa skin tight thing. And again, I think I've said this before, had Italy home and away Euro 2000 Kappa, and I had the Roma Scudetto winning Kappa effort when I had a physique that could get away with such a fit, but it obviously just didn't take off. Maybe they were just so far ahead of their time. But yeah, Argentina 2002 I think was the best tribute to Iron Maiden that's ever been seen on a football pitch. But it lasts and lasts and lasts. So much hair getting in the way. That might be the jealousy talking. Anyway, we got to the real issues eventually. Thank you, David.
Oh, an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, Adam.
Thank you.
The moment you've been waiting for, really. How many weeks have been doing this? Absolute Champions League stuff. And finally, a Barcelona moment worth talking about. But until next time, bye for now. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts, and breakdowns dropping every other day.